because it's a money game now. We spend tens of billions of dollars a year on lobbying in Washington, D.C. Think about that. Tens of billions of dollars a year that should be going to health care, it should be going to education, it should be going to making all of our lives better, and yet what it's doing is it's going to increase the profits for huge corporations and increase their tax breaks. At the end of the day, that's no good for anybody. That's why the United States has the most expensive healthcare system in the world, bar none. And you'll listen to the big debate that's going on now and you'll hear it. Do your own homework. Did you know that we are the only country in the entire world that has health insurance for profit? The only country. Like, you listen to the debate on American television, they're like going, oh no, if we have anything other than the system we have, it'll all fall apart and it'll be horrible and you'll have horrible health care. Tell that to the people that live in Australia or New Zealand or Taiwan or Japan or the UK or Canada or Switzerland or Germany. The bastions of capitalism, nobody has health care for profit. The last one they had it was Switzerland, and they did away with it a few years ago because they knew the system didn't work. The United States is the only country in the first world where you can go bankrupt if you get sick. As a matter of fact, it's the #1 cause of bankruptcy. Now, to a bunch of young folks like yourselves, you think like when you're your age that I'm going to live forever. I used to think that as well, right? You think, health insurance, what the heck, you know, I'll be able to afford it when I need it, right? Unfortunately, I bet you guys all have parents and relatives. And I bet you know Mononco that like go to the pharmacy and go, which one of these am I going to live without this month? You know ones that like show up at school and kids that show up to school sick because their parents can't afford to treat them. I can tell you a story. Actually, I will. We represent in the union school health care counselors, right, which are registered nurses. And this little boy came into the nurse's office and he said, my arms hurt. And the nurse looked at his arms and said, oh my God, both of your arms are broken. And he picked up the phone and he called the parents and he said, why did you not take your kid to the doctor when both of his arms are broken? And the parents said, my deductible on my insurance was too high and I couldn't afford it. Now think about it. You can say whatever you want about the parents. You can say whatever you want about anything, but you can't let a child suffer. It just isn't right, and it's not the type of world I want to live in. I don't care if the kid's parents are rich. I don't care if they work for Gov Guam or they work for a bank or they work for a hotel. We don't do that in our society. At least not the society I want to live in. Unfortunately, on Guam, we've created that society. We've created a society where 65% of our population are on food stamps. Did you guys know that? 65%. Now that sounds high. When I tell this story in DC, they're like, oh Christ, 65%, that's insane. How can you have an economy with 65%? And I said, that's not the half of it. How many of you guys knew that permanent resident aliens don't qualify for food stamps? Did you know what PRAs are? There are brothers and sisters from the Federated States of Micronesia. There are brothers and sisters from the Philippines that have green cards. I mean, you'll hear people, even my colleagues in the legislature, that'll talk smack and they'll go, oh, these people from the FSM, they just come here so they can get on food stamps. Baloney. They don't. They don't qualify. Since 1992, they haven't qualified. If they come to Guam and they have a child on Guam, the child qualifies for food stamps. You see, we built a system that isn't right, and people aren't earning enough money. The majority of people on Guam, whether you're in the private sector or in the public sector, earn below $10 an hour. What this means is people can't afford to eat, they can't afford to buy a house, they can't afford to buy a new car, they can't afford to go out and participate in our consumer-based economy. We have driven down the wages so low that our economy is faltering and failing. Today, the legislature passed a bill, the new Budget Act, and I was the only Democrat to vote against it. And I vote against it not because Senator Pangilinan did a bad job. He did a great job. This is the best budget bill I've seen in a decade, right? It's well thought out, the numbers are real and realistic. Why I voted against it is because it is systematically part of the problem. This budget is about a 2.7% increase over last year's budget. But last year we had 6% inflation. So what does that mean? If you have 6% inflation and you only raise your budget 2.3%, that means you're getting 3.7% or 2.7% less than you had last year. Over the last 6 years, our budget has only gone up by about 17%, I believe. I'm pulling these numbers off the top of my head, but about 17%, whereas inflation has been over 36%. So we have lost, I think we've lost a total of 17% in the last 6 years. Our standard of living has consistently gone down and down and down. Our public services have gone down and down and down. I just saw this beautiful video of Gain and all the hard work you did up there. Do you know how many dog catchers we have on Guam now? 1. And he's about 65 years old and he has diabetes and has enough trouble getting in and out of his truck, much less chasing after a dog that's running away, right? That's not the way it's supposed to work. 20 years ago, we had a whole fleet of dog catchers. And we had a public structure where we had a structure that was paid for by taxpayers that worked. We can't afford it anymore. And it's the same thing with everything in our public structure, whether it's our school system where we spend less than half the national average per child. Less than half. These guys will tell you, oh, it's the majority of our budget. We're prioritizing education. You could prioritize, but that doesn't make any difference. 2/3 of too little is still too little, and it's too little, right? The same thing is with public safety, the same things with public health. We are underfunding our system so the least and most needy of our family are suffering. And on Guam, the least and most needy are all of us. So I had to look at how we can rapidly change and rebuild our economy so that it works. The first thing I did is tried to sort out the H2 problem. The reason our wages are so low is because unscrupulous contractors have been using temporary foreign workers to continue to drive down our wages. If you work on a federal contract on Guam land blocks, you make $11.74 an hour. You work on the same contract in Hawaii, you make $34 an hour. These guys will tell you, oh, we can't find workers here, that's why we do it. They're lying, right? I guarantee you, if I put a sign up on the fence of Anderson and said, now hiring block layers for $34 an hour, I'll bet you somebody in this room would be signing up. I doubt very many of you guys make $34 an hour. 1, that I've been working on both here and in DC. 2, do you know how much somebody makes working in this hotel? I can tell you, the numbers exist. Up until a few years ago when we started raising the minimum wage, it was like a quarter above the minimum wage, the average income. Today, the average employee of this hotel makes about $7.35 an hour. You can find these numbers on the Department of Labor's website. $7.35 an hour. Do you know what you qualify to get food stamps for on Guam? $13.40 an hour. If you're making less than that and have a family, you qualify for food stamps. So what happens when we do this?